So here's the thing. Living in Jacksonville, Florida, it's not all palm trees and perfect sunsets. Yeah, the beaches are great and the cost of living still turns head. But there are some things that people don't tell you about until you're stuck on I-295 wondering if you've made a mistake. From neighborhoods that feel like ghost towns during the day to storms that roll in like they've got beef with your backyard, there's a side of Jacksonville, Florida that most people skip over. But here's the flip side. If you know what you're looking for and what to expect, Jacksonville, Florida can be one of the best lifestyle moves you'll ever make. I'm gonna walk you through the real pros and cons of living here in 2025. What's changed, what's better, and what's still a little weird. And by the end of the video, you'll know if this city actually fits your life, not just your social media boards. Stay tuned. What a lot of people get wrong about Jacksonville, Florida is they think it's just one big city. Like you show up, plant your flag, and bam, you're a Floridian now. But here's the truth. Jacksonville is really a bunch of totally different areas that just happen to share the same area. Each pocket has its own vibe, its own little culture. You've got San Marco, where it feels like time slows down a bit, tree-lined streets, old brick homes, wine bars, boutique shops. It's charming in that the classic Southern kind of way. Then take a 10-minute drive over to Riverside, and you've got a whole different energy. Artsy, historic, walkable. You'll pass a guy on a fixed-gear bike, a record shop, and probably someone painting a mural on the side of a building. Springfield is having a full-on revival moment. Historic homes being restored, community porch concerts, coffee shops that serve drinks you can't pronounce, but you'll probably still like. Then there's the beaches. Jax Beach, Neptune, and Atlantic, each with their own personalities. Jacksonville Beach is like a little louder, more surf town meets nightlife. Neptune's laid back and residential. Atlantic is like a cool older cousin who's into farmers markets and backyard yoga. What makes this so great, especially for people relocating, is you've got options that match different lifestyles. Whether you're into vintage neighborhoods with character or new builds and master plan communities with resort vibes, Jacksonville, Florida kind of lets you choose your own adventure. Understanding this helps avoid the whole "we moved to the wrong part of town" situation. The city's not a one-size-fits-all, and that's a good thing. You just need someone who can help you match your personality to the right pocket of Jacksonville, Florida. And speaking of lifestyle, let's talk about one of the best parts of living here, especially if you've ever dreamed about being just a few minutes away from the ocean without having to sell a kidney to do it. But before doing that, if you're watching right now thinking, I thought I knew Jacksonville, but now I'm learning something new, that's exactly why we put these videos together. My team and I are local real estate professionals who live and work right here in the Jacksonville, Florida area. And we help people just like you buy and sell and relocate every single day. So whether you're moving across town or across the country and you want someone who actually understands every inch of this place, we've got you covered. Our info's in the description. Reach out anytime. One of the biggest perks of living in the Jacksonville, Florida area is that you can actually enjoy the beach without feeling like a theme park. This isn't Miami. You're not elbowing through tourists just to find a towel-sized patch of sand. Whether you're into surfing, sunrise walks, or grabbing fish tacos and flip-flops, the beaches here deliver the laid-back coastal lifestyle, but with room to breathe. And the cool part, each beach has its own flavor. Jacksonville Beach is the liveliest of the bunch. There's more nightlife, more energy, a little more grit. Think rooftop bars, volleyball nets, and surfboards sticking out of truck beds. It's young, fun, and definitely not boring. A few blocks north, Neptune Beach tones it down a notch. It's smaller, more residential, and feels like the kind of place where everyone knows the name of your dog. There's a charm here that locals guard like a secret. Then there's Atlantic Beach, arguably the most under-the-radar gym on the coast. Quiet streets, walkable town center, local restaurants where the servers don't wear name tags because you probably already know them. It's got the small-town vibe by the sea that's hard to find anymore. And the kicker, you can actually live near the beach without needing a tech CEO salary. Our price is climbing? Sure, but compared to South Florida or even St. Augustine in some spots, Jacksonville beaches are still within reach for normal people who just want that salty air lifestyle without living in a shoebox. Plus, most of these areas have beach access that's not a nightmare to park at. You can literally grab your coffee and be on the sand before it gets cold. And for folks who grew up fighting for a spot on overcrowded beaches elsewhere, that's a game changer. But life here isn't all about beach cruisers and sunrise paddleboards. There's one thing about Jacksonville, Florida, that catches people off guard. and it hits almost every single day around the same time. Jacksonville's weather can be the biggest drama queen you have ever seen. You'll hear people say, yeah, it's hot in Florida, but what they don't explain is the type of heat you're dealing with here. That isn't the dry desert heat. This is full body, steam room, shirt stuck to your back by 10 a.m. kind of heat. And it's not just summer, it starts creeping in around May, and it doesn't let go until sometime around Halloween. And then there's the rain. Afternoon thunderstorms in Jacksonville, Florida are less of a weather event and more of a personality trait. The day will start off with gorgeous blue skies, sunshine, and by 3:17 p.m., it's like the sky just remembered it had a beef with your neighborhood. Buckets of rain, sideways wind, thunder that rattles your windows, and then 20 minutes later, it's sunshine again. The upside? Most of the time, these storms move through fast. You just learn to time your grocery runs and dog walks around them. And locals get pretty good at reading the sky, like storm chasers, but with Publix bags. Now hurricanes? They're more bark than bite most of the time in Jacksonville, Florida. We're on the northeast corner of Florida, so while we get warnings and occasional brush, we're not usually taking a direct hit like they are in the Gulf Coast or South Florida. Still, you want to be hurricane aware, especially in late summer and early fall. Battery stockpiles, sandwich fixings become serious business. And that said, if you can handle the heat and roll with a few surprise downpours, the upside is the sunshine. Lots of it. This city gets over 220 sunny days a year. So yeah, the weather has its wild moments, but it also means backyard barbecues in February and beach days in November. Of course, when that sunshine does show up and everyone hits the road at once, that's one thing you're definitely going to run into, and that's traffic. Here's something people don't find out until they live here for a minute. Jacksonville's traffic isn't technically terrible, but it's got this sneaky way of ruining your day. The problem isn't grid-like you'll find in LA or Atlanta. It's more about how spread out the city is and how the roads are laid out like they were designed after a couple of margaritas. It's the largest city by land area in the country, which sounds impressive until you realize it also means your dentist, your kid's soccer game, and the one decent Thai place are each about 25 minutes in different directions. And in a few choke points like Blanding Boulevard, Racetrack Road, or pretty much anything that stretches along JTB during rush hour, and suddenly you're sitting in what feels like a slow motion chaos. And don't even get me started about the exit ramps off of 295 that sneak up on you like last minute pop quiz. Here's the kicker. The GPS will lie to you. It'll say 20 minutes, but the second it hears Southside Boulevard, it's like, just kidding, 38 and counting. And because the city is still growing so fast, especially in places like Durban and northern St. John's, you've got construction zones popping up like mushrooms after a summer storm. But here's the flip side, and it's worth noting. Outside of peak hours, the roads do move. And if you're strategic about timing, you can get across town faster than in most big metros. And a lot of locals have figured out their little shortcuts and timing hacks. It's just, there's a learning curve, and you're probably going to hit the curve on a random Tuesday when you're already late. So if you're picturing Jacksonville as this breezy, no traffic paradise, pump the brakes, pun fully intended, but once you know the rhythm of the city, it gets a whole lot easier to navigate. And speaking of rhythm, Jacksonville has a surprisingly active calendar of events and little cultural surprises that don't always show up in Google searches. Let's talk about the stuff locals get really excited about. One of the coolest parts of living in Jacksonville is all the little events and community stuff that fly completely under the radar. These aren't the things that you'll be finding on Google like top 10 things to do in Jacksonville. This is more like stumbling onto a local secret and wondering why nobody told you sooner. For example, Porch Fest in Springfield, it's exactly what it sounds like. Local bands performing from the front porches of historic homes while the crowd just rolls on by. No massive stage, no wristbands, no overpriced drinks. Just live music, local food trucks in a neighborhood that feels like one big backyard party. Over in Riverside, you've got the arts market every Saturday under the bridge by the river. Local markets, artists, musicians, and yeah, probably someone selling handmade soap or plant cuttings out of the back of a vintage camper. It's quirky, but it's charming. Yep, this is my city kind of way. In Durban, and some of the master plan communities out in St. Johns County, you'll find things like food truck Fridays, movie nights on the lawn, or seasonal festivals that turn your neighborhood into a full-on block party. There's usually a bounce house, a live band, and at least one booth selling kettle corn like it's gold. Even on the beaches, you've got things like dancing in the streets in Atlantic Beach or local surf competitions that aren't trying to be trendy. They're just part of the culture here. What makes this stuff so special is that it's built around the connection. It's not touristy or overly polished. It's neighborhoods coming together, local businesses showing up, and people talking to each other. And if you're moving here wondering if you'll meet people or get involved, this is how it happens. Not through forced networking or awkward HOA meetings, but by showing up in a community event and bumping into someone over a cold beer or a cover band doing Tom Petty justice. Now, of course, all the good energy and social buzz works even better when you're actually found the right home in the right neighborhood. So let's shift gears and talk about why buying here still makes sense if you know where to look. One of the biggest reasons people are packing up their lives and moving to Jacksonville, you can still buy a house here that actually makes sense. Now, yes, prices have gone up. We're not in 2019 anymore, where you can snag a new build for about the price of a loaded Toyota Tacoma. But compared to places like South Florida and California or the Northeast, Jacksonville is still one of the few metro areas where your budget can actually stretch. In many parts of the country, $600,000 might get you a dated 2-bedroom with questionable foundation, but here, that can land you a 4-bedroom, newer construction home with resort-style amenities. With a screened lanai, a preserved view, and maybe even space for the golf cart you never thought you'd own. And we're not just talking about new construction. The resale market in Jacksonville, Florida is alive and well, especially if you know how to move quickly and recognize a well-maintained home when you see it. Some of the best values right now are coming from sellers who've taken great care of their homes, relocating themselves, or maybe downsizing. Plus, there are builders here who actually know what they're doing. Riverside Homes, ICI, David Weekley, they're building homes people want to live in, not just flip. And the bonus of these master plan communities, you're not just buying a house, you're buying into a lifestyle. Pools, parks, walking trails, food truck, community events. It's like having a built-in social life without ever leaving your zip code. Whether you're a family wanting more space or a retiree looking for a low-maintenance living, or someone who's just done with the overpriced condo grind, there's still real opportunity in this market. You need a local who knows where the good stuff is hiding. Of course, not every part of town feels like home. Some areas are booming with newcomers and big plans, but they haven't quite caught up to that settled-in feeling yet. Let's talk about the downside that most people don't expect until they've already moved in. I call it the revolving door effect. One thing people don't really think about when they're moving to Jacksonville, Florida, especially into the newer communities, is how temporary some of the neighborhoods can feel at first. A lot of folks are relocating here from out of state. That's not a bad thing. It's actually brought a ton of fresh energy into the city. But in certain areas, especially where it's a lot of new construction, the turnover is fast. Homes are being bought and sold every few years. Families come in, and sometimes it can feel like your neighborhood is in constant just move in. You meet your neighbor, wave a few times, and the next thing you know, there's a moving truck in the driveway and a new couple unpacking Amazon boxes a week later. It's not cold or unfriendly, it's just kind of disconnected. Everyone's figuring things out at the same time, and that can make it harder to feel truly settled right away. Compare that to some of Jacksonville's older neighborhoods, places like Ortega, Avondale, or even parts of Mandarin, where families here lived on the same street for a decade. And there's more of that rooted community feel. Kids riding bikes, people know each other's names, and the Friday night block parties don't need a Facebook invite to get rolling. So if you're someone who's craving the deeper connection with neighbors, coffee chats on the porch, familiar faces at the dog park, it's familiar to choose a part of Jacksonville that already has some of the built-in stability, because while new communities come with all the shiny stuff, it could take some time for them to grow into a real neighborhood vibe. And here's a little good news. A lot of the newer areas are starting to settle in. People are putting down roots, events are becoming traditions, and that sense of community is building fast. But it's definitely something to consider if you're deciding between a mature area or something brand new. Of course, for a lot of families, the decision often comes down to one thing above everything else, and that's schools. Let's get into how education fits into the picture here, and why Jacksonville, Florida, especially the suburbs, is catching a lot of attention for all the right reasons. Surprisingly strong public schools in the suburbs. If you've got kids or plan to have them, the topic of schools is probably near the top of your list. And when people start searching Florida, the public schools doesn't always get the best reputations across the board. But here's the twist. Northeast Florida is kind of the exception. St. Johns County, just south of Jacksonville proper, is consistently ranked among the top performing school districts in the entire state. We're talking A-rated schools, brand new campuses, and communities that are generally built with families in mind. From elementary through high school, you'll find schools that are not only academically strong, but also supported by very strong, involved parent and teacher networks. There's a big reason why areas like Durbin Creek, Jolington Creek, Silverleaf have exploded in popularity. People are buying homes with education as a core part of that decision. These aren't just houses near a school, they're communities designed around the lifestyle of raising a family. Now let's stay on the safe side here. Always do your own research. Look at a few school ratings, visit campuses, check out the zoning maps, because things can change, and what's true this year might not be true next year. I always tell clients to be the source of the source when it comes to the school info. But what's clear is that families moving here from out of state are often pleasantly surprised. They expected palm trees and sunshine. They didn't expect to find public schools that compete with what they had back in the suburbs of Chicago, the Bay Area, or the Northeast. That said, even with a great solid school district and a solid community, there's one thing that can throw a wrench into your daily routine. And that's how long it can take to get literally anywhere. Let's talk about everything's close myth that catches people off guard when they move here. One thing that surprises a lot of people after they move to Jacksonville, Florida, especially if they're coming from a big city or even a denser suburb, is just how car-dependent life here is. Even in some of the most popular neighborhoods, it's not uncommon to hop in the car to grab a cup of coffee, pick up groceries, or drop off the kids at school. Walkability is a dream, but a reality, not so much. Unless you're living in a very specific pockets like Riverside, San Marco, or parts of the beaches, chances are you're going to drive everywhere. The newer master plan communities, they're designed more for golf carts than foot traffic. You might have a town center or amenities within the neighborhood, but outside of that bubble, you're going to be racking up miles on the odometer just doing normal life stuff. Want Target? 15 minutes. Trader Joe's? That's a drive. A decent taco that's not from a chain? Start the car. Now, to be fair, there's a trade-off. The reason you're not living on top of your neighbors is because Jacksonville gives you space. Yards, parks, big garages, cul-de-sacs with actual room to turn around, but the space comes with distance. So if you're moving from a place where you're used to walking out your front door and having 5 restaurants and a yoga studio within 2 blocks, this shift is something to mentally prepare for. Some communities are trying to change that. You're seeing places like Durbin Park grow into mini lifestyle hubs where you can live, shop, and play in one area. But citywide, Jacksonville has a long way to go before it can call itself walkable. On the upside, all the space does give the city a unique advantage, especially if you're someone who loves nature, privacy, or just the feeling of breathing room. So let's flip the perspective and talk about why that extra elbow room might be one of Jacksonville, Florida's most underrated assets. One of the most underrated parts of Jacksonville, Florida, you can breathe here, literally and figuratively. This isn't a packed urban jungle with concrete walls closing in on you. Even in the most developed areas, Jacksonville still has this open, spread out feel that gives you room to live and, more importantly, room to relax. We're talking yards that you can actually stretch out in, preserved views, homes that aren't 6 feet apart with windows staring directly into each other's kitchens. Whether you're in a cul-de-sac in Jointon Creek or tucked away near the river in Mandarin, there's peacefulness baked into the layout of this city. And it's not just about the backyard space. Jacksonville is full of green pockets and nature escapes. You've got Hanna Park, Timaquan Preserve, and even miles of trails running through neighborhoods that feel more like nature reserves. You can hop in a kayak, bike along shaded paths, or just post up in your lanai and listen to the birds instead of your neighbor's playlist through the wall. If you're coming from a place where personal space is measured in inches, this will feel more like a breath of fresh air. Literally. You can spread out, slow down, and still have access to everything you need within a reasonable drive. And here's the part that really resonates with folks. This sense of space makes your home feel like home. It's not just where you sleep. It's where you recharge, entertain, spend actual time outdoors without bumping into 6 other families doing the exact same thing. Of course, with that space comes diversity, not just in home styles or lot sizes, but in personalities, perspectives, and even political leanings. And sometimes that blend gives Jacksonville a bit of an identity crisis. Here's where things get interesting, because Jacksonville doesn't really know what it wants to be. And depending on who you ask, it's either one of the biggest charms or one of the biggest headaches. This city's kind of like a playlist that skips from country to hip hop to yacht rock with zero warning. You'll go from surf culture to the beaches, to Southern Baptist potlucks in the suburbs, to progressive coffee shops tucked into historic neighborhoods, all within a 30-minute drive. On one side of town, you've got American flags, lifted trucks, and Friday night football. On the other, you'll find indie bookstores, yoga studios, and kubacha on the tap. It's blue in one zip code and red in the next, and somewhere in between, right down the middle, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, for a lot of people, it's exactly what they're looking for. A city where you don't have to fit one mold to belong, but for others, especially folks relocating from more culturally unified areas, it can feel a little disjointed at first. Jacksonville is constantly evolving. It's southern, coastal, suburban, urban, conservative, liberal, military, artsy, and it never fully commits to any one identity. That can make it tough to pin down where you'll fit until you really spend time in different parts of the city. There's a strong sense of local pride, even if everyone defines it differently. People here care about their communities, their schools, their sports teams, even if they're still trying to decide what kind of city they're actually living in. So yeah, Jacksonville might not always make sense on paper, but in a way, that gives you the freedom to make your own. And if you've served in the military, worked in public safety, or just places where the lifestyle is understood, respected, one part of the local culture, that it's going to feel like home right away. One thing that Jacksonville doesn't mess around with respect for military, veterans, and first responders. It's woven into the city's DNA. With two major bases, Naval Station Mayport and NAS or Naval Air Station Jacksonville, this isn't just a city that says we support the military, it actually lives it. You'll see military families everywhere, at schools, neighborhoods, at your local gym. It's not just a part of the economy here, it's part of everyday life. And for anyone who's served, whether you're active duty, retired, or transitioning out, the city just gets it. From discounts and services to real community appreciation. There's a level of understanding here don't always find in bigger, more transient cities. That respect carries over to first responders too. As a former deputy sheriff and a Marine myself, I can tell you firsthand, people in this city still wave at law enforcement. You'll see firefighter flags hanging on porches. It's not performative, it's personal. A lot of our clients in these groups tell me that they moved here because they wanted to feel like they were part of something again. Not just find a house, but find a place that felt solid, familiar, supported. Jacksonville's that kind of place. And beyond the cultural side, there are real tangible benefits too. You've got VA healthcare options, military-friendly lenders, and opportunities that understand the PCS lifestyle. Plus, it helps when your real estate agent team speaks the same language and knows what it looks like to navigate those transitions. Whether you're looking for a soft landing after years of service or a fresh start with people who understand your pace, this is a city that shows up for its own. So yes, Jacksonville knows how to take care of its people, especially if you serve or are still serving. You'll feel that support baked into the community. But once the sun goes down and you're off duty, there's one part of the city life that still feels a little underdeveloped. And if you're that kind of person who likes to unwind with a little nightlife, this may catch you a little off guard. Here's the thing about Jacksonville, Florida. It knows how to do sunshine, space, and suburbia. But if you're looking for a vibrant nightlife scene or an endless rotation of trendy restaurants, this isn't exactly a 24/7 city. Outside of a few key neighborhoods, things wind down early, like lights off by 9:30 p.m. kind of early. Unless you're living your Jacksonville Beach, Riverside, or maybe Five Points, you're probably not walking to a wine bar or catching live music on a Tuesday night. And that's not to say there's no scene here. There are some fantastic hidden gems, craft breweries, rooftop bars, local music spots, but they're scattered. You have to know where to go. You're not going to stumble into a busy street lined with restaurants and cocktail lounges unless you planned ahead. In many of the newer or more suburban neighborhoods like Durbin, Bartram, or much of St. Johns County, you'll find plenty of great spots to eat until around 8 p.m. After that, you're looking for fast food or making peace with your pantry. For younger professionals, foodies, or couples used to last-minute dinner reservations in a walkable nightlife district, this can be a bit of a culture shock. Jacksonville doesn't offer that kind of dense, always-on energy. Not yet anyway. That said, if your idea of a good night is grilling in the back, watching the game, or hitting the beach for a sunset walk, this city definitely delivers. It's not just trying to be Miami or Atlanta, it probably never will be. And honestly, that's part of what makes it appealing for so many people. You get more calm than chaos, more space than scene, and once you find your favorite go-to spots, it starts to feel like home. So with that all said, let's go to the real talk and help you figure out if Jacksonville fits your life, not just your wish list. So now you've seen it, the full picture. Jacksonville's not perfect, no place is. You've got the heat, the sprawl, some growing pains, and yeah, you're probably not grabbing late night ramen without a bit of a drive. But here's the flip side, and it's a big one. If you're looking for a city where you can actually breathe, where your dollar still stretches, and where the community matters, and where you can build a life that fits your pace, not someone else's, Jacksonville's hard to beat. The key is knowing where you belong in all of this, because not every neighborhood is the same. What works for your friend or coworker might be totally wrong for you. That's where we come in. If you're thinking about making a move or even just considering it, reach out to my team, where we have resources to share that are packed with honest local insights and you aren't going to find on Zillow listings or a blog post from someone who visited once and called it a day. Or better yet, let's schedule a call and jump right into planning your move. Whatever's easiest. We'll talk you through what you're looking for and figure out if Jacksonville really fits your lifestyle. And if you're still in the exploration phase, I've got a playlist on my channel you should check out that will break down what living in Jacksonville, Florida is really all about. I'm Andrew Michael. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.